How's it going, everybody? This is Novakast back with another video for you guys, and since we're kind of doing the whole Spider-Man thing, at least for my reviews this second, I figured I'd do the next one, which was Spider-Man Homecoming, released in 2017, directed by John Watts, written by Jonathan Goldstein, and John Francis Daly, and many others, starring Tom Holland, Michael Keaton, Robert Downey Jr., and many more. Now, oh gosh, what am I going to say about this? Because when it was announced that Spider-Man was going to be in Civil War, or at least, when we saw the trailers, a lot of people were floored when it comes to this, and including myself, by the way. And when we got to see him in action, as well as the Peter Parker for the Marvel Cinematic Universe, honestly, it is actually a really cool take of Spider-Man. In fact, it's almost like close to the Ultimate Spider-Man, where he's like still a teenager. And sure enough, being a teenager, they're gonna be, and to some extent, still be kind of like a kid. So to see that with this particular Spider-Man was actually really great. To kind of set up, or at least the setting or story, this is after Civil War, and obviously, and to some extent, Spider-Man is doing his own thing, waiting for further orders or any other missions from Tony Stark or Happy of any quote-unquote Avenger business, when he comes across people using very high-tech weaponry, and one thing leads to another, and he ends up meeting the Vulture, and chaos ensues, and just goes on through that. And I gotta say, they actually did really well with this movie, especially with a lot of characters. I think probably the most entertaining was more of like the teenager characters. So, characters like, the Flash being a, kind of a mean-spirited kid was, interesting to say the least. Tom Holland playing Peter Parker / Spider-Man was a lot of fun to watch. Then we have, looking at, a few of the characters, Marissa Tomei, I think that's how you say it, as May Parker, was, being the May Parker, Aunt May, really fun. Now, as much as I like, going back to Tom Holland, as much as I like Tom Holland as Spider-Man, I absolutely love Michael Keaton as the Vulture, or Adrian Toomes. And I'm to look at this, he isn't like full-blown, to some extent, full-blown evil. I mean, we get to see his backstory, where you have a guy who is just trying to do what he what he can for his family, to provide for his family, and to some extent ends up having to kind of take a dark career path, or kind of go into villainy in order to provide for his family. So to some extent, he's trying to do good, doing bad. Here we go, doing bad with good intentions. And to some extent, it's interesting. It's interesting because to an extent, he's not a completely evil individual. Sure, he's selling weapons to criminals, but at the same time, he only got to this point because he wanted to provide for his family, and that's it, to give them the good life to some extent. So I enjoyed that. With this also, by the way, speaking of characters, Robert Downey Jr., he's only seen a couple of times, which is more of like when it comes to lecturing or mentoring Spider-Man, which, granted, I will say there was, those moments were interesting, especially with him, like, kind of scolding scolding Peter Parker for some of the things he does. When it comes down to some of the locations, the school looked really nice. We had one moment where they're in DC, which was kind of cool. The warehouse, even though it's like a basic, like, you know, let's say government warehouse where they store a lot of illegal material, that was interesting to say the least, especially with us to kind of getting a little bit to know more about, you know, Spider-Man, as well as the suit that he wears, which is apparently has a artificial intelligence and in some sense runs all of his stuff to I think the final fight, which was on the jet plane with the reflector pads where it's like completely invisible. So all in all, I absolutely love this. Now, the going forward music, really awesome. I really enjoyed that. With it being 2017, CGI, the combat action, really freaking good. Probably one of the best moments, which I don't know if it was a callback to Spider-Man 2 to an extent, but it was kind of close, was the ferry scene where Spider-Man fights the Vulture and he's literally having to web up like the ferry that was split in half and has to try to save everyone. That was actually really cool. So above all, and I think a lot of people know what I'm going to say with this, this is a great film. This is one of those films that I'm sure a lot of people at this point now have watched, but I wanted to get my opinion out because I really enjoyed this. This film is a lot of fun to watch. And for those who have not seen it, go check it out. And with that, I think I have nothing else to say, so thank you guys so much for watching. Truly appreciate it. If you guys can, please leave a like, comment, share, subscribe, all the good stuff. If you guys want to follow us on social media, links are in the description down below, as well as check out our daily content and the weekly podcast. With that being said, this is Rob Novakast signing off. Have a good one, and take care. Peace.